Growing up as a person of color, you always look around and you think, how are people going to perceive me? How is my skin color going to impact me? What is this going to do to my life? And with time, you do learn what it does. And it's disappointing to see how people around you perceive you. And these are our stories.
High school specifically, there were times we would read books in English classes that had the N-word in it, and for some odd reason the teacher would be like, oh, this book has the N-word in it, if you feel so inclined to say it, you can, because it's part of the book. And I just remember the way that everyone would look at me as if I was the one who gave her permission to say that. Was so stupid. And then there were times where that would happen and people would say the N-word and they would look right at me while saying it. Or there were just times where people would try to make me feel bad about myself because of my race.
But it was more so just kind of being outcasted, I guess, and not really having a place of belonging, because I was the only Asian kid when I graduated high school in my high school. So it was just me, and it's not that I didn't have friends or anything, but it more so was not fitting in with the way of thinking with the rest of my peers and my classmates, except for the few. And it was a lot of just insecurity in my own identity because everyone was the same back home.
I grew up mixed, and lots of people accepted me and my family and my sisters and my dad because we were good Black people and because we acted the way that society wanted us to. But it felt really constraining to act like that and to try to fit into norms that I shouldn't have had to think about as a middle schooler, high schooler, elementary schooler even. And it was a lot to deal with at that young age.
And where I always had to fight to be in those advanced classes because I was always told that, oh, you can't be in those classes for whatever reasons, when they were your scores don't match up and everything, when in reality that wasn't the case. They had favoritism for sure, where they would put some students in those higher ed classes, but I had better scores than them because we would talk about it and we brought it up. We were I have a better score than him. What seems to be the deal? So I always had to fight for those opportunities, and that's something I don't want other people to have to fight for.
But definitely when I've been in spaces before, my mom's old friends, they all spoke Spanish. They all were even if they were if their kids were mixed, they really still hold in their household really held to the Mexican traditions, while for me it's kind of I've kind of grown up to be Americanized, and my mom will tell me about traditions and things, but it's just kind of they've kind of just been regurgitated rather than being the full real thing. And so it's just kind of I've been fighting for understanding my culture for so long that it's just at this point I don't know if it's gonna be enough anymore. So yeah.
And we all were just kind of talking about our families and stuff we did, and I remember it came to me and someone was Darnasia, how's it living with your mom, just your mom? And I kind of just looked at them and I was what do you mean just my mom? And they're well, yeah, I'm just assuming your dad's not there. And I kind of just stared at them and I was why would you assume that? And in their head, which I don't even blame them 100%, but they very much just assume every Black person doesn't have a dad or something, or that their dad left. And I just remember how mad that made me that was the first thing they assumed instead of talking to me about it, because they had asked me or just literally let me speak about it, I would have said my dad works a 9-to-5 job and that I'd see him later that day because him and my parents were still together. And it's just so frustrating that a lot of people just assume that about Black people, because it doesn't just, people can leave, your dad or mom can leave, but it's not just people of color.
I've noticed that it was really highly upsetting is not having that support from other Black women or being or having colorism against you is a big thing as well, because I'm dark skinned as well. So because of that, naturally, people look down on me even more, or I'm hypersexualized, which is really hard. The newest version of racism I'm facing is like microaggressions and passive aggressiveness. I'm used to very blunt racist things in my face or being hypersexualized. So I'm like, okay, like I can call people out on that, but the microaggressions, the, oh, you're taking too long, or the, oh, I didn't know if it was working, like you could wait 10 seconds, or being thought of as aggressive because I'm quiet sometimes, or I'm very confident in myself. People can take that as me being the angry Black woman, or like, oh, I'm surprised you're so nice. And I've never done anything for anybody to feel that I'm not nice. It's just because of my positionality. Yeah.
My mom's side of the family is white, and then my dad's side of the family is Hispanic. I have never really gotten to meet my dad's side of the family, but from how they have interacted with us over like social media, they don't really understand who I am, and they don't really accept my brother and I because we're mixed. Because I wasn't raised in a traditional Hispanic household, I have been more like subjected to the white side and how I need to like fit into that. And then my mom's side of the family, they've always like over-sexualized me and made like really rude comments just about like how I was an anchor baby, and that like my dad should go back to his home country, and just all these like random little comments, because my brother and I are one of the few in the family that are not white, and he's more white passing than I am, so he doesn't really get as much, but I mostly get a lot more hate than he does. We don't talk to that side of the family anymore because of stuff that happened a few years ago, where they pretty much said that all the Mexicans in the family should be put up on a shooting block and need to be shot.
When I was in elementary school, I was part of a Hispanic friend group, and during lunch, sometimes we would speak in Spanish and talk to each other and laugh and, be happy or whatever. And some white females on the other side of the table decided to tell one of the TAs that we were talking about them poorly, even though they did not understand what we were saying, and they got us in trouble for no reason. And I thought that was probably the first experience I had with like someone being racist, and I didn't even understand what racism was at the time. So
it's still definitely shown up in a few different ways throughout my life. Growing up, it always looked like microaggressions from like people I went to school with, or even like adults, like family, like the white part of my family saying stuff kind of like, when I was younger, it would always be doing like kind of like the fake war cries with the hand over the mouth, or calling me an Indian, or just kind of like Pocahontas, or just stuff like that. But as I kind of got older, it kind of became more deeper and kind of more on like a systemic level. So it became like asking me like, do I get free money? Do I not pay taxes? Do I not, do all of these things, all of these kind of like stereotypes that are untrue and are so harmful because people believe like these things that are untrue and think that is kind of unfair.
This is who we are, and we cannot change that.